All right, welcome everybody. You're here to learn how to build an app to report on custom sales goals, quotas, and KPIs. Thanks for getting up for an early session. Hopefully you weren't out too late last night. And now my slide deck won't work, which is awesome. There we go. So just a little background about myself. Why am I here? It's because Salesforce changed my life. I was a sales rep and sales director for about a decade, so I was using it as an end user. Became an accidental admin at a bunch of places that I worked. And about 6 years ago, I was ready for a career change. I was tired of sales, didn't want to have a quota hanging over my head anymore. Loved working with Salesforce and really saw an opportunity to follow that career path to something technical and be able to take the business knowledge I had using Salesforce and take that and help companies optimize it and get more out of their investments on the platform. That was right around the time when Trailhead came out, so that's how I started. And then I started studying for my first certification. I have 8 now. I have a full-time consulting practice. I speak at a ton of these events all around the world because I feel really lucky that I was able to make that career change, and it's kind of my way to give back. I'm also the leader of the Lowell, Massachusetts admin user group, one of the co-organizers of Northeast Streaming, which is an event like this we had in Rhode Island last year. We're going to have it in the fall this year. Date and location should be out in the next few weeks. And I'm also the co-founder of ReportFirst.blog, which is a blog about Salesforce reports and dashboards. I'm based in New Hampshire in the US. So reporting is a key component of any Salesforce organization, any business. But ironically, for a company called Salesforce, they're terrible at helping you to be able to report on that stuff. If you want to report and measure anything outside of, say, revenue sold as far as a quota or KPI or units sold, it's almost impossible. So what we're trying to solve for that here is to build a mechanism to allow us to customize whatever your goals and KPIs are for your company and be able to measure against those. So our business requirements are you set quarterly goals around several KPIs, and you want to be able to measure the attainment of these goals that factor into the sales team's variable compensation, right? Sales folks get paid, typically a salary, then they get commission on what they sell, and sometimes accelerators for exceeding their quotas and goals. We want to be able to measure all of that in real time. We also want to make sure that the VP of sales can quickly and easily see in real time where his team as well as the individual reps are towards those goals and KPIs. So what KPIs are we going to use for this example? Closed won revenue, right? Everybody uses that. That's out of the box with normal forecasting. Upsell revenue. New business revenue. So we're going to split basically into those two buckets and then combine them back together for the total. Number of new logos. Number of upsells. Number of demos. Number of proposals. So some of these are opportunity-based. Some of these are activity-based. The opportunity ones you could technically do with the forecasting module. The activity ones you can't. So that's why I've combined them all so you can do everything in one place as opposed to measuring your opportunity things from forecasting, your activity things somewhere else. So if we just take a quick peek over here, set up your normal forecasting settings here. If you're trying to create a new forecast type, we're really limited, right? It has to be related to an opportunity product, or the line item schedule. There's nothing there that would give you the option to do anything around activities. So that's one of the limitations we're trying to overcome. Solution design. So we're going to build a couple of custom objects. We're going to have to do a data load, whether that's manual data entry or we do a mass upload. We're going to create automation. We're going to create a custom report type, reports in a dashboard, a custom Lightning app, as well as Lightning pages, and then we'll talk a little bit about permissions. So data model, basically two custom objects. We have a sales goal. That's going to hold the main data points of what each KPI and goal is. Each record is tied to a specific sales rep and time period for this example. Heavily utilizes roll-up summaries and formulas. Then we have a sales goal metric, master detail relationship to the sales goal. The records are used to attribute attainment towards a sales goal. They use lookup relationships to other objects, and they're all created via automation, right? Because we don't want to have somebody do all this manual data entry, pull things out of Excel. So we'll just take a quick look at our data model. So we'll look at first our sales goal, and I'm going to start down the bottom here. So on the left column here, we have all of our goals. So my resolution is way off here. This is not going to work. Sorry, we're going to have to ditch the recording and go back. All right, you can see now. Cool. So back again, we're going to scroll down the bottom. The left side here, goals. That's all going to be manually entered. So when you create this goal record, you're going to manually enter all of those fields on the left. So number of new logos goal, number of upsells goal, number of demos goal, the revenue as well. On the right side is your achievement towards that. These are all roll-up fields, and they're going to be populated through the child object, which is created through automation. I'll get into that in a minute. And then up top, we basically just have formulas that look at the roll-ups, comparing that to the goals, and just calculating your percentage towards attainment. We'll take a quick look down below. We have our goal metric records. And again, these are all going to be created automatically for you. And you can see they're tied to certain other records. They're tied to accounts. Some of them are tied to activities, some to opportunities, some to activities and opportunities. And then we have a few columns there that I'll get into in a second. Really important thing here on that data model is in our master detail relationship, on our sales goal metric record, when we create that master detail to the sales goal, there's a really easy to forget checkbox that we want to make sure we check. And that is right here, reparent master detail. And that's really important because we're going to have metrics that get created for an opportunity that might have a close date in Q1. Very common that opportunity could get pushed out to Q2. We want to move that from Q1's goal to Q2's goal automatically. When I first built this, I did not have that box checked, and I'm testing my flow, and it wasn't moving them, and I couldn't figure out why. This is why. So it's not checked by default, so just make sure you go in there and check it. Key fields. We have a bunch here called quarter and year. That's going to help us match things. So I'll show you that in a second. Sales rep, owner, assigned on the activities. Basically, whose record is this? Activity is an important one. Type, stage, and status. And they're really important the way you configure these. So I'll just quickly show you what those look like. So on our sales goal, we'll start with quarter and year. And it's just a case formula. And basically, just all we're trying to do is produce a text value of Q1 space 2022 as an example, right? And we have the same type of field on the opportunity that references the close date, on the activities that reflect the due date, and so on. So they're basically going to be used to match each other together in our automation. The sales rep would match against opportunity owner, the assigned on the task and activity. Now on our sales goal metric, there's another one that was a little tricky. So if we could just go back here, if I look at my activity column here, I can click into this, right? And it's going to take me to that actual event record for this demo, which is good, right? That's the first thing you're going to do. If one of the reps says, hey, I'm missing some metrics here, I thought I had more demos, you're going to go to that record, you're going to look at the list there, and if you see it there, you're going to click into it to say, is this just a data error, or are we really missing something here, right? Now, that is not out of the box because lookups do not support activities. So how do we solve for that? What we did was we created two custom fields. We have one here, which is just text, activity ID, and that gets populated through the automation when that sales metric record gets created with just the ID of that activity, okay? And then our second field, and this is the one that's displayed in that column in the list view, is just a hyperlink formula that says, hey, take this activity ID and give me the subject line from that activity, so it looks exactly like a lookup, performs like it, but it truly isn't. The other two are our type and our stage and status. And I've combined these, so for our type, I've combined the type field from opportunity, so new business, renewal, upsell, and then on the activity, proposal sent, demo from our custom activity type field. Just to keep them clean. You could separate them out, but for me, there's no need to do it. And I've intentionally left these non-restricted so that if you change those pick list values in the future, somebody's going to have to remember to go in there and change them here too. By leaving it unrestricted, the new values will get pushed into that. You'll still need to update some of your roll-up summaries to make those calculations happen, but as soon as you do, it'll be retroactive, everything updates. We did the same thing on our stage and status. We've combined all of our opportunity stages and then all of our activity statuses. We've added a custom event status because there's not one out of the box. Just, is it a scheduled demo? Is it completed? That's a required field on those, so it's always going to be populated. Automation. So I've done mine this way. I've had 6 separate flows. There's a lot of ways to do this, so if you have like a one flow per object methodology, you would build this into that. I've just separated it out to keep it clean and be able to demo it quickly. But we're basically on each object, we're going to have an on create and an on update. And I'll show you those in a second. So we'll look at our first flow. And we'll just use opportunity. And you could split these out into subflows as well. Again, if you're using, one on create, make a subflow that fires this off, so it's a little bit easier to manage. But we want this to fire basically anytime an opportunity gets created, we want a sales goal metric record. So that's an open opportunity. We're able to forecast out in the future, regardless of when the close date is. We're going to be able to tie that back to one of those sales goal records, matching on the close date of that opportunity, using the quarter and year from the op, quarter and year on the sales goal. That's how the automation will fire. So we see our entry here, none. Basically, anytime an op's created, this is going to trigger, which is what we want. We're getting a sales goal record where sales rep matches opportunity owner ID, quarter and year matches quarter and year on the opportunity. That's our matching component. It's basically tied to a person, to a time period. Same data model would work like if you had different BDRs and AEs, you could have different versions of this. You could have different record types for sales versus service versus marketing. It's super flexible. So that's how we match. I always put in a decision here just to say, hey, did we find a goal metric? So maybe it's a new hire, somebody forgot to create their goals. We just don't want to have an error. They're not going to be able to save their opportunity as an example. And then we're actually just creating our metric record. And we're populating, the account, the amount, expected revenue, linking it to the op, stage status type, all those fields we're creating in that child record. All the other objects work exactly the same. We then also have our on update. And I'll use the opportunity again. This one I have doing a little bit different. I have entry criteria because I only want it to trigger certain times. So if the amount changes, you add remove products. We need to change the amount on that sales goal metric record. If the owner is changed, so Melissa has an opportunity. She moves on to another company. I inherit her opportunity. They move it to my name. That metric record needs to pull off of her goal. Now it's on my goal. Stage change, right? We have roll-ups that put these in certain buckets, whether it's closed won versus not. So anytime the stage changes, we want to update that as well. And then close date, right? Extremely common. Opportunities get pushed out all the time. We have to be able to say, hey, we thought this was closing in Q1. It's really going to most likely close in Q2. Move it to that next goal. Then I have a custom report type, and that's going to be sales goals with or without sales goal metrics. And the reason for that is, and I found this out the hard way the first time I built this, I was showing a dashboard and I couldn't figure out why some of the goals weren't showing up there. I was using the standard report that is generated when I create that master detail. There's going to be a sales goal with sales goal metrics standard report type created for you automatically. That is filtering out any sales goals that don't have any metric records connected to it. So if we're in Q1, you're probably not, you may have some opportunities for Q4, but you're definitely not going to have activities. You may not have anything. You're automatically going to filter those Q4 goal records out of that report because they don't have any child records attached to them. So that's why you need the custom report type, so that you're pulling everything in there. So you can see, hey, we have a goal for Q4. We have 0 attainment towards it right now, but that's acceptable when you're in Q1 for most companies. Just show you our quick report. If you don't know how to create a custom report type, very simple. Come to setup, you go to your report types, and we'll take a look at ours. Sales goal with or without. I always explicitly label these because you're either filtering things in or things out based on how you set up the second relationship. So I always try and be super clear what's in there, because I think it can be really confusing to users if it's not properly named. So we want them to know right out of the gate what's already in this or what's already out of this before I do any additional filters in my report. And then in our relationship, we've just said sales goal is the parent, sales goal metrics is the child, and we may or may not have a related record, and that's what we need. One other thing on our flow here on our updates, some of these get combined. So we basically have a series of decisions based on what has changed. So did the amount change? If so, create an assignment. Was the sales, did the owner or close date change? I've combined these two together because both of those are going to require a get record to go get another sales goal record, whereas just the amount changing or stage changing do not require that get. That's why I put them together, just to save on a little efficiency there. And then you can see at each decision, I've done an assignment. That way we can update the record once at the end. We don't want to update it at decision 1. I have to update the same record again at decision 2, so on and so forth. So we're using our assignments there to make it super efficient. We're just touching the record once. Custom map and pages. I'm a big fan of these, especially custom pages. And the examples I'm going to give you, I think, are wildly underused. But we want to make this really easy. So whether it's a sales ops, VP of sales, we want them to go to one spot, be able to see everything they need without having to toggle all over the thing, without having 12 different tabs open, all that sort of stuff. So we'll take a quick look at our app. You can see here it's sales performance is our app. We have our sales goals here. We have a few list views that are showing us what our goals are. And you can see here, all of my goals are the same for each quarter. Cam's are very different. His are different numbers, but they're also different quarter by quarter. So again, you can make this really flexible. Maybe I'm an AE, so mine are flat. BDRs, maybe you're ramping them up. They have different goals for each quarter, increasing throughout the year. Within our app, then, we have a couple of cool tabs here. You know, we have our ops, task, calendar, all the standard stuff we're going to want to see. But then we have a couple of tabs here that really show us what we're trying to look at. Actually, let me go to this one first. So the percentage to goal, most of these folks, when you roll this out to them, have been doing this in Excel, right? We don't want them to have to do that, So we can create an easy view like this where it's kind of similar to Excel. It's what they're used to seeing, and it's going to be, I think, a little more easy for them to adopt. So we can see what our expected revenue is towards our goal here, percent to goal, split out by quarter, by rep, and then for each of those KPIs, you see what the attainment is towards those. And then at the top of it, we've just added a couple of filters so we can quickly slice and dice this by quarter, by rep. Instead of having multiple versions of the same dashboard or reports, everything's in one spot. They can slice and dice it right there. Now, as they get a little more advanced and you get them comfortable looking at this stuff, then we add something a little prettier. I would much prefer to look at this than to look at the other versions. And again, we have a couple of different versions, right? Bar chart versus our gas gauge. Tells us that, and then again, simply toggling by one rep or by one time period, it's going to automatically update all those charts so we can truly see the difference between each person. And to do that, all we did was create a couple of app pages. In our app, and if you don't know what an app page is, you're probably familiar. Anytime you create a page, you're going to get basically three options. You want to create a home page, are you creating a record page, or an app page? An app page is really just a blank canvas. You can put anything on it. For this example here, which I'm going to show you, all we've done is embed a single dashboard on each of those tabs. And it makes it super easy for the executives because they're never, ever, ever going to remember what folder you put that dashboard in, right? They're probably not going to even hit the little star up there to favorite it so they can go right back. They're never going to find it. So if you put it in a tab, it's right in front of them. They literally can't miss it. They don't have to bother you with Slack or an email saying, where's this dashboard? And we can see here, we'll just quickly look at our page. So if we just look at one of these, completely blank canvas, and then the only component that we have is our dashboard. If it loads. All right, there we go. So we can see here up on the right there, just says dashboard. That's the only component there. So you're just basically putting it right into a tab. All right, permissions. To me, sales goal and sales goal metric records should be read-only for anybody other than an admin and maybe like sales ops if they're responsible for actually creating those goal records. Sharing model. Probably want to make it private and grant through hierarchies because if I know that I have $1 million quota, but David has 500K, I'm not going to be too happy about that if we're peers, right? So you want to be really careful about this. You can also build in commission right into the same structure. So adding some columns for commission, very easily done, or whether you have a custom object for that. It can get a little tricky with the report formulas based on kickers. If you hit 4 out of your 6 goals, what's your comp? Is it 1.5? All your variables, but it's completely doable within that structure. Things to remember: 40 roll-ups per object. So if you have more than that, you could use flow to basically mimic the roll-ups. So you would have your flow say, take this value and add +1 to it every time a new record. So you could do that if you had more than 40. But that's the reason I did a master detail here to utilize those roll-ups. Keep your close dates up to date, right? You're going to have, the start of a new quarter, you're going to have open ops that have a close date in last quarter. So make sure you have a mechanism for the reps to update those, whether it's a scheduled report that says, hey, these are all open ops with close date in the past. As soon as they update those dates, they get pushed to the new metric record. So it'll always be up to date. Create your sales goal before the time period. So if you're already in January and you haven't created those, you have a data gap because those ops created the first week of January aren't tied to a goal because that only fires on creation. If there's no goal record when they're created, nothing happens. So try and get ahead of that. You can always do data loads to both the sales goal and the sales goal metric records. So those would be doable. A couple other resources. So Report Force, that's my blog. Dashboard Dojo, David Conner sitting right up front here. That's him. Great resource. And then if you're more on the whatever they're calling Einstein Analytics Tableau today, Salesforce Blogger is a great resource as well. So Thank you all very much for your time. Any questions?
Does this have to live in an app? You
Nope.
create this inside of traditional Sales Cloud?
You can put it, this is all right, and this really is Sales Cloud. It's just a separate app, so like a collection of tabs. That's all it is. So you could have your normal sales app and embed those right in there. Typically, you're going to hide those for most folks, but you could, yeah, you absolutely could do that. Anybody? It would work on mobile, so you'd be able to create the goal records like any other record there. You'd be able to see the dashboards. Obviously, mobile is harder to read dashboards, obviously, for reasons of screen resolution, that sort of thing, but it would work mobile as well. Same thing, if you updated an opportunity from your mobile, it's still going to update or move that goal metric record as well. Anything else? Cool. Thank you all so much.